Peace. I'm Marcel Malikibu coming to you live from Minneapolis, Minnesota. This is a podcast that has yet to be named. I'm not quite sure what the format's going to be or what I'm always going to talk about, but this show discusses big ideas and sometimes small ideas too through the lens of trending topics and news stories, current news stories, and sometimes news stories that'll be a little bit older. And so I'm not quite sure how the format's going to go, but essentially I just wanted to start making things because I've sort of seen a gap in news and independent journalism where stories are not being told in a way where it's explained in a way that is relevant to me. And so that's essentially what I wanted to do. And being that I am in Minneapolis, obviously currently we are going through an insurgence of a bunch of ICE agents here in the cities. That's not the reason or the precedent for me starting this show. I actually recorded a couple episodes that I never put out before, but it is something that is on my mind, and so I do have a couple different stories today, and the first one will be about ICE. Now, here in Minneapolis, I live in Minneapolis proper. I'm not going to say where, but I live in the city of Minneapolis. We've had some interesting interactions with the police department, but recently the bunch of different Minnesota Police Department heads and leaders came together and they took a stand against ICE and the ICE, the dangerous elements of the ICE occupation. And so I want to play a clip and then ask you guys a couple questions, and hopefully you can respond and tell me what you think. So here we go.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mark Bruley, Police Chief of the City of Brooklyn Park. Behind me is a bunch of amazing police chiefs that are here in support of a very short but very important message that we want to share with you. What you won't hear from any of us today is rhetoric of abolish immigration enforcement. The truth is, immigration enforcement is necessary for our national security and for local security. But how it's done is extremely important. In fact, we have a long history of working exceptionally well with our federal partners, including ICE agents, and we have seen the best of them perform their job extremely well in the past. With that said, recently, as the last 2 weeks, we, as law enforcement community, have been receiving endless complaints about civil rights violations in our streets from U.S. citizens. What we're hearing is they're being stopped in traffic stops or on the street with no cause and being forced to demand paperwork to determine if they are here legally.
Yeah.
As this went on over the past 2 weeks, we started hearing from our police officers the same complaints as they fell victim to this while off duty.
Hold on. Let me pause real quick. I'm gonna bring it back a couple of seconds so you guys can listen to this again. This is the chief of police of the city of Brooklyn Park. Another is basically like a first tier suburb. I guess maybe because Brooklyn Center's in between, maybe it's a second tier, but it's a northwest suburb of Minneapolis, with a large immigrant population, and also somewhere where I used to live. But let me go ahead and play this back.
As this went on over the past 2 weeks, we started hearing from our police officers the same complaints as they fell victim to this while off duty. Every one of these individuals is a person of color who has had this happen to them.
Woo! So as you can hear, this individual, Mr. Bruley, Chief Bruley, he's talking about the fact that local Brooklyn Park, and you'll hear from leaders from other cities as well, but local Brooklyn Park police officers of color have also been pulled over by ICE and asked to produce paperwork.
In Brooklyn Park, one particular officer that shared her story with me was stopped as she passed ICE going down the roadway. When they boxed her in, they demanded her paperwork, of which she's a U.S. citizen and clearly would not have any paperwork. When she became concerned about the rhetoric and the way she was being treated, she pulled out her phone. In an attempt to record the incident, the phone was knocked out of her hands, prevented her from recording it. The officer had their guns drawn during this interaction. And after the officer became so concerned, they were forced to identify themselves as a Brooklyn Park police officer in hopes of slowing the incident and de-escalating the incident down. The agents then immediately left after hearing this, making no other comments, no other apologies, just got in their vehicles and left. I wish I could tell you that this was an isolated incident. In fact, many of the chiefs standing behind me have similar incidents with their off-duty officers. This isn't just important because it happened to off-duty police officers, but what it did do is we know that our officers know what the Constitution is, they know what right and wrong is, and they know when people are being targeted, and that's what they were. If it is happening to our officers, it pains me to think of how many of our community members are falling victim to this every day.
Okay, I don't think I need to play this video any further. And actually, I won't play any more of the leaders because I don't think you necessarily need to hear from them. The chief of police of Saint Paul, the sort of like sister city of Minneapolis, part of the Twin Cities, also spoke and discussed some of these same happenings taking place in Saint Paul. And I want to know what you guys think about this. There is a number of people, including the sheriff of Hennepin County is here and spoke for probably I think the longest time out of all of the leaders here. And I think it's important that these law enforcement leaders say this and that they engage in this way. A lot of people have conflicting ideas or they take issue with this for various reasons. So I want to hear what you guys have to say. If you can put something down in the comment box, that would be lovely. The comment box. In the future, I may do some live broadcasts if I get enough people watching. If there's no one watching, no big deal. But if people are watching and they're interested in doing these sort of like reports or breakdowns or reviews or whatever live, then maybe I'll do that. But for now, it'd be nice if people just left comments. I don't need likes, I don't need subscribes, all that stuff, but comments would be nice. I want it to be a conversation. What do you think about this? I mean, I can say on my part that it's if you know me, so my background is that I'm a producer, a producer of podcasts. I've been pretty involved in local journalism here, I guess, in a sense. I mean, I started more on just like a national podcast that wasn't really journalism in the purest sense. And I've done a couple different projects here with Star Tribune and Minnesota Public Radio and things of that sort. But as somebody who's from Minneapolis, raised in North Minneapolis, I've had quite a few interactions with police. In my interactions, actually, the suburban police are typically a lot worse and treat people of color a lot worse than the police in the actual city. And maybe that's because I grew up over north and I felt like it was, I don't know if it's under policed or something like that, but police were never there to help, only to harass. But most of my harassment happened actually in the city of Brooklyn Park and then a couple times in the city of Saint Paul. But Brooklyn Park is notorious for harassing individuals of color. They do have quite a bit of, crime and stuff like that now, but they've harassed even when I was just running around trying to get to school, taking college classes and things like that. I was still getting pulled over. So for me, Brooklyn Park has always been on that bullshit, but I'm glad to see that the that Mr. Bruley is coming out and speaking out. Watch through, and you can decide what you think about this story. I thought it was really powerful to hear from so many leaders. And in the wake of George Floyd, a lot of these leaders, including the chief of police in Minneapolis, Brian O'Hara, have been coming out and saying, hey, we're trying to repair things with the community, and now these guys are screwing it up. How much that's true, I think it's true in part. I do see police, attending community events. I do see them trying to interact with people. And they also have a job to do, and then other people are getting pulled over for foolish things. I got a ticket for parking my car backward on the street in front of my own house. So police still got to get money, and make money for the state. So it's a complex relationship, but you guys go ahead and put some comments down, in the comment section, and let me know what you think. Am I totally off? Do you have information that I don't have? Go ahead and share that. Now, for the second topic, actually, I did want to touch on something really quickly. There was another story, well, not a story, but there was another press conference that involved a young woman here in the Twin Cities who was born and raised in Saint Paul. Her name is Nasra Ahmed. She's 23. She's a U.S. citizen, and she was raised in Saint Paul, Minneapolis. She got arrested last week by ICE and was detained for 2 days. I want to play a quick clip of the press conference that Nasra was present for the other day with House Representative Samakab Hussein. He serves in the Minnesota House of Representatives, and it's District 65A, which includes parts of the city of St. Paul in Ramsey County. He is a leader in the Somali community. He's from Somalia. He came to the United States when he was 14, and I thought he took on this press conference very well, and he executed it very well. So I want to play a quick clip of him discussing the detainment of Nasra Ahmed.
Okay, sorry. I got confused there.
Good afternoon. My name is State Representative Samakab Hussein, District 65A. I'm honored to be here with you all. Thank you for being here with my colleagues. And as you can see, Nasra Ahmed and her father's here with us, the family members that happened to the tragedy in St. Paul about a week ago.
Hello, my name is, excuse me.
Thank you. And over the last 2 weeks, my office has been receiving endless complaints from our community about civil rights violation on our streets and our community. We are hearing from U.S. citizens, parents, young people, and working family who say they have been stopped with no clarity cost and demanding to show their identity, whether they are citizens or whether they are here illegally or legally way in the state of Minnesota. Let me be clear, this is not a normal, it is unlawful, and it's not public safety. It is intimidation, harassment, and it looks like racial profiling for those people, black and brown, that has been detained in St. Paul and the state of Minnesota. Many of you have seen the video that's circling online about Nasra Ahmed. Nasra Ahmed is 23 years old, U.S. citizen, born here in Minnesota, raised in Minnesota. She was unjustly arrested by ICE and detained for 2 days with no legal representation, with no giving a clear answer why she got arrested. Nasra just has been released, but she's not fine yet because she's shocked, devastated, traumatized, and she will never be the same until she get arrested.
So again, Nasra is indeed a U.S. citizen. She's 23 years old, which, now I think is actually pretty young. Maybe when I was 23, I was thinking I was a big man, but now that's pretty young to me. So this is troubling. I'm going to play a little bit more of this.
But what we experienced, it felt like a nightmare when I spoke with her, that she is not feeling the same person. She feels fear. She asked question herself whether she belonged in here or not, even though she was born in the United States of America. She has been harassed because the way she looks like, the way she dressed. It was easy target to pick up because she is Somali American, but they did not ask her whether she's, born here, and she's been saying it clearly that I am citizen, I am born here in America, never seen in the country. This bigger than one case. Every single person reporting this incident, it's a person of color. That's unacceptable. So today I'm saying clearly, this has to stop for the racial profiling that we've seen in our state of Minnesota.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it there because, though I really respect what Representative Hussein is saying, and I think he said very eloquently. I'm highlighting the story for Nasra because I'm just thinking about me, being in college and having a funny last name and all of that, and just thinking about all my lovely friends from the Somali community, from really immigrants from all places that aren't Europe, basically, and even a couple who are from Europe that just look a little bit different, and it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. So I wanted to ask, let me play. I'm going to play one more video. I want to play one more video for you guys. And this video, I think, is the most telling of all. This story is particularly troubling. All of them are troubling, but this one is particularly troubling. So if you don't like listening to anything that involves any kind of violence surrounding children or anything like that, you can just go ahead and skip maybe 2 minutes.
We're learning new details about what the Minneapolis Fire Department saw and faced when responding to the ICE shooting last week that killed Renee Good.
The newly released documents come after one of the violent clashes sent an infant to the hospital. ABC's Olivia Rubin has the latest.
I can't breathe.
Despite calls from local leaders for peace and to turn down the temperature, clashes between protesters and federal officers not letting up in Minnesota. Federal agents deploying tear gas on crowds, urging them to leave.
Stay off federal property or you will be arrested.
In one distressing scene, a baby hospitalized after a family's car was hit with tear gas, according to the Minneapolis Office of Community Safety. The agency saying the 6-month-old had difficulty breathing.
The ICE agents came forward and they were lined up with their mace.
The Jackson family says they were driving home from their son's basketball game. The gas grenades setting off the airbags in the car, trapping them inside. Bystanders opening the doors. That's when the family says the baby wasn't breathing.
Having to get my baby mouth to mouth and people pouring milk all over my other kids. I thought I was dying, honestly. And the way I felt, I could imagine how my kids felt because I'm a full-blown grown adult, so I just knew that it was even worse for them.
We've reached out to DHS for comment on the incident. Tensions flaring since the killing last week of Renee Good. Good was found, quote, unresponsive, not breathing, according to a Minneapolis Fire Department report. That report saying her injuries included 2 apparent gunshot wounds to the right chest, 1 apparent shot to the left forearm, and 1 possible gunshot wound to the left side of the head. The report saying officials moved Good away from the
Okay, I don't really care to keep playing the end of this clip that involves the story of Renee Good. You can, check out more information on that with a simple Google search. What I will say about the Jackson family is that this doesn't feel good. I really hope that the Jackson family is doing okay after that. And that story, um this incident really hit me when I heard about it the night that it happened, because um when I think about this kind of uh unregulated, unruly, nasty violence that ICE is exacting on people, I understand that there are some protesters who are doing a little bit too much, and I totally get that. Some people, if you're throwing blocks of ice at people, or no pun intended, if you're throwing water bottles and hitting ice agents or something like that, maybe there should be some kind of localized physical response, or someone should go and grab you or something like that. But to just be setting off gas canisters with people trying to get home, you can't help where you live. You can't help the route that you have to travel to get home. Sometimes there are certain blocks and things where you can't really avoid going past some of these demonstrations. And for the most part, the demonstrations are pretty peaceful, actually. And when it comes to this family, one of the most interesting things is that this family is not, from what I understand, the Jackson family is not an immigrant family. They are foundational Black American people who are pioneers of this country, people that built this country. And to have, the descendants of people that built this country be attacked when they're not even exacting violence or acting in any kind of inappropriate way with the ICE agents is really, really troubling. I mean, you have a young woman with Nasra. You have off-duty police officers who are just maybe going shopping, going to the store, going to the gas station. Things in Minneapolis are not as crazy for the most part as I think they're being portrayed from the outside. Um, there are outsider, journalists and things like that coming here and only portraying certain aspects of what the city look like. I mean, you can go to different, I had breakfast this morning. At the same time where I had breakfast, was there some activity around there? Yes, there was some activity around there. It is real. I did see some ICE agents here on the north side on my way to go get breakfast over on the south side. So I do know that there is activity here. It's very real, particularly for people that look a certain way. And my question to you guys is, you know, how much do you need? How much information do you need? How many stories do you need? Um, and is this really where we want to go? What's the end game? I think that's kind of what it is. What's the end game? You have a 23-year-old girl, traveling around the city. She's probably going to go get some coffee or something like that, or go to the gym, or go swimming, or go meet with a friend. And what's the end game of detaining her for 2 days and traumatizing her, scarring her for life? What's the end game of essentially attacking an entire family full of children when they went to a basketball game? As they said, they're trying to enrich their children's lives, and you're destroying it because you're upset that some people are in the country that you don't like. uh Earlier I went to go get a haircut with my barber, and I have a barber who's from Mexico, and nobody liked me up because of my. It's not my barber's fault. It's me. I'm about to be bald pretty soon. But you know, when I was talking with my uh, barber about some of this, we discussed ICE, because he's lost um, some numbers in terms of how many people are coming into the shop. Um, and, he told me that 4 of his family members have been deported during this surge already. And when I think about 4 human beings in a family being, deported, I think, well, how could that many people in your family be deported? I mean, it's no secret that I come from a lineage of Liberians, and so um I have a lot of family members that, that are including myself because of the way I look. Obviously, I don't necessarily look like a typical Liberian. I may look like some other immigrant. Um, but I have a lot of family members who are also, anxious during this time and all that. But to lose 4 family members to deportation in a period of a couple months is crazy. The other thing is, I asked him, I said, well, are any of these people violent criminals? Because, most people think that, the immigrants are just so liberal and just want to allow everything. No, most immigrants, just like many, I guess, white Americans and most foundational Black Americans that I have met are conservative, and and people don't like crime in their communities, and so we don't like violent or sexual criminals and stuff like that in our community. So a lot of people have taken the same stance I take, which is, if there are super violent or whatever criminals, then they should be, they should be up. How do you say that? They should be potentially deported. Yes. I mean, but if they go and they do their time for 8 years in prison or something like that, and then they come out, and then 5 years later you want to throw them out of the country, I'm not quite sure if that makes sense to me. But what he told me was, man, none of these people are criminals at all. They all are just, a day worker, a restaurant worker. Um, I forget what the other 2 were, but these are just working people. There was a guy here in the Liberian community recently, played in one of the basketball leagues, and he was he was a 15-year Marine veteran, and he got detained. Now, he did get out because people advocated for him, but I just imagine, like, for my barber's family, who no one is there to advocate for his family, they are already deported or on the deportation list. And so, um, I kind of want to know what the end goal is. It appears that there is none. It does appear to be politically motivated. But I want to know what you guys think. What's the end game? Is this a good thing? Is it a good thing to just get immigrants out of the country? Is that your perspective? If that's your perspective, share it, please, extensively. Write down in the comments and share with me why you think immigrants, but be specific, because it's only Black and brown immigrants. So if you think Black and brown immigrants and yellow, something about calling people yellow does sound crazy, but if you think that Black, brown, and yellow people for whatever reason should not be in the country, just put that down below in the comments. I would love to hear your perspective either way. And I just want to share these stories with you. This stuff doesn't feel good, but it's good to talk about. And in line with the thought of how much is enough, how many accounts, when you hear police, when you hear a young immigrant woman, when you hear a family of American citizens who don't even have immigrant lineage also talking about being attacked with tear gas, and that's extremely dangerous to a 6-month-old. That child could have died just due to reckless behavior from ICE agents. So I wanted to ask a question in line with that from another story, and this story has to do with actor Timothy Busfield. So Timothy Busfield is known for The West Wing, I think a show called, or something called 30 something, and then what's that film called? Not A League of Their Own. What is it called? Timothy Busfield. Sorry, I did some research earlier. Oh, Field of Dreams. That's the movie, Field of Dreams. And this guy, actor Timothy Busfield, he was charged with sexually abusing some minors. I don't want to get too far into that because, you know, YouTube has an interesting algorithm, but he was charged with sexual abuse. And you know, it's an interesting story to me because, you know, Timothy took the stance that the allegations are completely false. And his lawyer is, you know, Stanton Stein says, or Larry Stein, I guess is how he prefers to be called, says that they're going to fight this all the way to the end. What I thought was particularly interesting about this is that he was accused by two young boys from the set of inappropriate touching. And, you know, Mr. Busfield claims that these allegations came after the two boys got let go from the show. And so the parents were upset and they made this story up. And it actually sounded relatively convincing, but shortly after that allegation, another allegation came out from a girl who was 16 at the time, who said that Mr. Busfield allegedly kissed and groped her. And you know, the father was adamant that this had happened and that Mr. Busfield had agreed to go to therapy of some sort. Let me quote this from the BBC. That court documents state that the father alleged that the actor, quote, begged the family to not report to law enforcement and agreed to go to therapy. And Busfield's lawyer told the BBC that he denies all these accusations and maintains that they're all completely false. But there's two previous accusations of sexual assault by two women in the 1990s and in 2012, which the prosecutors pointed to in court documents. What I think is, here's my question is, you know, I don't know either way. I do think when you are a person of influence, a person of wealth, you could potentially be the target of, you know, a targeted legal attack like this. But how many accusations, when it comes to especially these kind of accusations, or allegations of, you know, sexual misconduct over time from the 1990s all the way to 2024. My question is, do accusations or allegations suggest a pattern of behavior? I know that these ones do, but I'm saying, is just the accusation or the allegation enough? And how many are enough for this to get fully looked into? I know that the studios had looked into it according to this article, and you know, the one with the 2024 with the young boys, and said that they didn't, you know, find they could not substantiate the claims. But I want to know what you guys think. How many allegations does somebody need for it to be like, yeah, you know, we need to slow down and look at this? Or, hey, buddy, maybe you just don't do this kind of work anymore. Or maybe you have like supervision or something. I could see how the other two allegations from 2012 and before may have been because these are women and he was a little bit younger, that this wasn't a, you know, allegation of some kind of pedophilic behavior, and so maybe those are seen as separate. But I think that this kind of conduct, if it is true, is alarming and it is concerning. And what I'm concerned about is that with all of these allegations, it looks like he's going to get off in this case. Timothy Busfield was ordered to be released by the judge yesterday as he awaits further proceedings on child sexual abuse charges. He did make the trip. They claim about 2,000 miles to turn himself in. That doesn't mean much to me, but I want to know what you guys think. How much is too much? How many allegations is too many allegations? For someone to be, you know, sort of on a list, on a list. And how far does someone have to go before they're held accountable for their actions, I guess. And maybe it's just when there's enough proof. I wanted to go to I had a couple other stories. One of them, Indiana beat Miami. Do sports matter to anyone anymore in reality? I know people like them and pay attention to them, but do sports actually matter? That's the question I want to ask. You can answer that question down there if you don't care about the others, or you can answer all of them. I don't care. But in Indiana beat Miami. That's great. That NCAA, and I mean that for college and professional basketball in today's day and age with all of what's going on. Obviously in Minneapolis right now it's acute, but just in general, the world that we live in, do sports matter? I mean, and is that something that I should talk about? Do you think it's unimportant to talk about? If you enjoy it, if it's just something nice and just whatever, let me know. But yeah, the Hoosiers won. Last story, I just want to show you guys this last story. So there was a young man back in 2022 who recently, in 2022 went on a killing spree, and he shot and stabbed his brother and killed 4 neighbors. So just check this out.
He intends to plead guilty. Now, this is Austin Thompson, who was 15 years old at the time of the mass shooting in the Hedingham community in Raleigh. This was October of 2022. The trial for this shooting is intended to begin here at the beginning of February, but new court documents reveal that he...
Doesn't he look like super bad?
Intends to plead guilty to the shooting that injured 6 people and killed 5. I want to go ahead and show you the statement here from Austin Thompson's attorneys about all of this. This is what I mentioned, that court document, the intent to plead guilty document. Let's go ahead and pull that up here now. Austin was 15 years old when these events occurred. While the serious brain injury he suffered has made it such that Austin cannot explain why he committed the shooting, he has always accepted that he did this. The statement continues.
Okay, Austin indeed did plead guilty, and I want to ask the question. I had this written down, or no, I didn't have it written down. I want to ask the question, which is always asked, but as you saw in that news report, Austin's quote was that he didn't, or his lawyer's quote was that, he was 15 at the time. He had a traumatic brain injury. He can't recall, or he doesn't know why exactly he did it. When do we stop making mental health excuses for white people, or accepting those excuses for white people and their behavior? Now, I know that he's a teenager, so with children, I tend to just take a step back. Children make a lot of decisions. Murdering people is a different kind of decision. And, even when I was 15 and, I was engaging in all kind of behaviors, I didn't think to myself, I'm going to murder my brother and murder a whole bunch of people around me. And so I want to ask this question. I know we talk about it all the time, but it's exhausting. This is exhausting. This is probably falling under the radar. And while there's all these images of the Venezuelan man who, swung a shovel at ICE, which was not an intelligent decision, but, when there's these, Trump has his, list of the worst and all this stuff. I think to myself, why is Austin Thompson not on that list when he murdered all of those, those beautiful neighbors of his and his brother? Why is he not on the list? And, he's 18 now. He's still a young man. He can come back somewhat from the actions he's taken. But I want to know from you guys, is 2 things. is this kind of sick tragedy, can you come back from this? Is this redeemable? Is it forgivable? And secondly, when do we stop making excuses for white people that commit these heinous acts? When do we stop making excuses? And objectively, for all people who do these acts, I think anybody who does this kind of act should not have excuses made for them. But I notice a pattern of white people sort of being protected almost by, this story. I didn't see it everywhere. And I think it should be everywhere. I think this story should be everywhere. So with that, I think I'll leave you. Let me know what you think about the format, about the stories. Comment down below. Tell me what you want to hear more about, or if there should be more discussions about things. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you next week. Peace.